Sports Saturday.
It's complete. Another touchdown!
Cougar Sports Saturday. A presentation of KSL Sports.
Left wing for three. He got it again!
BYU Sports Talk by Cougar fans for Cougar fans. Here are your hosts, Mitch Harper and Matt Baiamonte. On Utah's legacy home of the Cougars. KSL News Radio, 102.7 FM and 1160 AM.
We're watching some Big 12 football. The Fighting Patrick Mahomes up 10-3 on Iowa State.
Ooh.
Obviously, that is an interesting football game.
Upset watch, potentially?
I'm rooting for Iowa State just because I don't want to face Kansas State again, Mitch. I don't. I'm afraid of Kansas State.
Bring them on. Bring them on.
Bring them on? You're not afraid?
Bring them on!
You're not afraid?
The Fighting Kalanis. They'll take him down. No, it would be tough to take down K-State a second time. K-State's good. It's a really good football team.
All right, Mitch. Let's change gears now to BYU basketball. We'll get into our season preview. We had assistant coach Will Voigt on the program earlier. We'll put that up on the podcast feed. Nice little breakdown on where they're at with the rotation, their fatigue of practice.
I love how open they are about that. Man, a lot of practice.
Well, he joked earlier. He's like, in the NBA where we all came from, we'd have like a couple of days of training camp, and then we're off and running. We're just practicing, practice. Good stuff from Will Voigt. I really liked his breakdown on how they're aiming to set a rotation. Good stuff. Go check that out anywhere you get podcasts, and also in the KSL Sports app. You can download that, get access to what? Cougar Sports Saturday, Cougar Nation, Cougar Tracks. It's all there in the KSL Sports app. Let's start this off. The new era of Kevin Young. This has got to be the most unbelievable offseason in the history of BYU basketball. I can't think of another offseason, except for maybe potentially this upcoming offseason could potentially be as crazy as the last one. Where does this offseason rank? Notable storylines from the offseason. Mark Pope goes to Kentucky. You hire Kevin Young from the NBA. You sign Yegor Demin, Cannon Catchings, Brady Kozlowski, and I'm missing the point guard. Why is his name escaping me? Elijah Crawford, thank you. Mawat Mag, Keba, Keita. You get Chris Burgess to join from Utah. Where does this offseason rank for you?
It has to be number one all time. And I look at Jimmer's senior year as a second, but I look at this one number one because BYU throughout the offseason was in the national conversation in college basketball headlines, whether it was losing their coach to a blue blood at Kentucky. How does BYU replace him? They get an NBA, the top assistant coach in the NBA, in Kevin Young. He's inspired the boosters, the NIL war chest, to be better than anyone would have ever expected for BYU basketball. And then he's assembling a roster that registered headlines nationally in the basketball world, not just college basketball, but the NBA world, by getting Yegor Demin and getting Cannon Catchings. It was just an impressive offseason to where I feel like Kevin Young is the type of hire, and if he succeeds, that college programs that are in these power leagues are going to say, well, we got to start looking at the NBA assistants and finding a way to do what BYU's doing. And I don't know if that can necessarily work because...
It can't work.
Well, because Kevin Young clearly wanted to be at BYU. This was a job that he eyed and thought, okay, if I was to go to the college ranks, that's the spot I'd go to.
I don't think we are giving enough credit to the unique circumstances that led to this. Kevin Young has alluded to this, that BYU was kind of always in the back of his mind because he married his wife, went to BYU, and he's not a BYU guy, did not graduate from BYU, did not spend much time here in the state of Utah, did not grow up in the state of Utah. Mitch, he had a little stint where he got things started at Utah Valley University, but BYU is kind of back in his mind because of his connection to the church, being a member of the church, of course, that connection is there. But he had his sights set on the NBA. He was an NBA guy. That's where he cut his teeth, and that's where he wanted to be. And if Mark Pope did not leave, Kevin Young would be an NBA head coach. Because the circumstances of what happened in the NBA, it's amazing how things worked out for BYU, and it's even more amazing how things worked out for the Kevin Young family. He goes to the Phoenix Suns under Monty Williams. Monty Williams get pushed out. They bring in Frank Vogel. He stays. He gets a salary bump. He's the highest assistant in the NBA. Frank Vogel didn't work out. And would Mike Budenholzer have kept Kevin Young? You could probably say no. That staff is a lot older, that Phoenix Suns staff. Their lead assistant now is David Fizdale. He's a long NBA guy. I'm going down the weeds here of how we got to where we were. But he interviewed for multiple NBA jobs. If BYU wasn't there, he probably takes one of those jobs, and then BYU goes a different direction, and who knows if the timing ever works out for BYU and for Kevin Young. Now, it so happens to be that Mark Pope went off to Kentucky. Kevin Young wasn't sure he wanted to do an NBA job because of his family dynamic. And what do you know? BYU opens. I can reset a little bit because there's a lot less games at the college level compared to the NBA. I'm home more with my family. I want to do that. BYU's at a point in the Big 12 where they have the financial resources to pay him market value. And what do you know? This is where we're at, and it's working out beautifully. But that window of time, the way that things weaved together, it was very unique. And there was a real chance that this never happened. And it did. It's beautiful, and I think BYU's in a better place for it. But it's pretty remarkable how we got to where we are today.
And BYU administrators, they acted fast. And it was a change of pace. We had Val Hell on the show last week or 2 weeks ago, on this program, and he was talking about his book and how BYU football tried to get Andy Reid once upon a time. But it was a long, drawn-out process.
And the window closed.
And it was just too long. And had you been able to maybe do a 72-hour deal like you did with Kevin Young, maybe you have Andy Reid, and who interviewed for the BYU job back in 2000. Kevin Young, because of he didn't need BYU.
No.
He was going to have options in the NBA world to land somewhere in coaching. And so BYU had to act fast. They understood the moment, and they pounced. And, credit to Brian Santiago, Shane Reese, Tom Holmoe for getting it done and getting Kevin Young, because he was an out-of-the-park hire. When we talked about the coaching candidates, we said that the perfect candidate would be Kevin Young. Like, you tossed it out there, his name. We're like, that'd be incredible.
Pie in the sky.
But how can you get him? He's an NBA guy. And even so many reporters and talking heads around the NBA have said, when it's NBA or college, guys are always going to the NBA. They're always choosing that path. But for BYU, it's different because you point out the family environment, but also it's a perfect world, too, of we're moving into revenue sharing in college sports where these guys are basically going to get paid. And then you got it to where these high-level prospects are connected to the high-level NBA athletes that Kevin Young was well-versed with in this network of people, whether it was agents, whether it was the people that are in the grassroots effort of basketball recruiting. He knew those people, and he knew how to vet and maybe figure out ways to get into the conversation for these top recruits, and it's worked out brilliantly. And it's been perfect. I mean, I felt that when he got hired and got the job, I thought, okay, I'm curious to see how he assembles a roster. How does he fare in recruiting? That was a breeze. And now he's settling into the season where that was his MO, was that X's and O's. He's a coaching savant. He's going to be brilliant with the clipboard. He was outstanding with assembling this roster and assembling this program. You looked on Wednesday night at that exhibition, all the quarter zips behind the bench. He has got an army of staff and people that can contribute to the efforts of this team. It's like an NBA front office. Kevin Young has just done a brilliant job to where I don't think Cougar fans understand. This is the type of hire that if it works for BYU, he might reinvent the game in college basketball and how you operate as a college basketball head coach going forward.
The potential here is Gonzaga. You could be the West Coast powerhouse. That's the potential. with Kevin Young and with his staff. And the reason I say that is look at who's already come in. They already have a commitment from Chamberlain Burgess. And, if you're a BYU basketball fan, you've seen the crystal ball reports on A.J. DeBanza.
Yeah. And I think you put stock into those. I mean, 24/7 Sports, those are national guys. They're not going to just throw that out there on a number one prospect. Those crystal balls matter. Those are big-time deals. And it's always been trending with A.J. DeBanza that BYU is in the mix, heavily involved with him. And there's a lot of respect. And it was noteworthy, too, that on his official visit last month, it wasn't about showing you the facilities, showing him this. Coaching. They're running plays in the facility. Like, that's how they're going to utilize them. It wasn't this, hey, here's the academic hall. And I think for sometimes fans that have been longtime BYU supporters and maybe want to go back to the previous days of where college meant something, it's tough because you're getting a guy. If you got A.J. DeBanza, he's made it clear he's one and done, and it's not about school, it's not about academia, it's about being a one and done and getting ready for the NBA. But you know what? To have a guy like him who could be a generational player in the NBA and have BYU next to his name, that's good for the BYU basketball brand, man.
And it's good for the brand going forward to execute on what they're trying to sell, and I love it, which is come to BYU. If you care about basketball, if you care about all the other stuff, this isn't for you. But if you want to succeed at high-level basketball, come here. Distraction-free, high-level coaching, develop you in the Big 12. Off you go. That's a nice recruiting pitch, Mitch.
And, you've always kind of wondered. I think people often thought, the honor code is a hindrance for BYU under recruiting. I've never subscribed to that because it's like, if you want to be a high-level athlete, you probably shouldn't be boozing. You should probably be smoking. What are we talking about here? Name me a high-level NBA player that's doing that stuff all the time. No, you got to eliminate distractions.
The Vlade Divacs of the world are behind us now. It's about sleeping in a hyperbaric chamber,
right,
hitting the cryo,
right,
drinking wine 24/7.
And having a coaching staff that understands the professional world, but also a nice blend, too, of Kevin Young being understanding and hey, I don't know, I have all the answers. And he's like, I got to bring in Brandon Dunson. I got to bring in Chris Burgess, John Linehan, guys that know the college scene, and then pair them up with Will Voigt, who we had on earlier, Tim Fanning, who have incredible connections internationally and in the professional G League and the NBA. It's an incredible blend. And it's just, I'm so fascinated to see how this program evolves under Kevin Young because, I feel like this is just the beginning, and this team could be really good. But I feel like there's so much more to obtain in the years to come with Kevin Young, and I just think Cougar Nation should be really excited about what this program has in store.
Let's take a break. We saw the exhibition game earlier in the week. We'll discuss that, the starting lineup in that game, what we think it will be, and let's also chime in on the rotation because there's a lot of options. Let's talk this year's basketball team. They start the season off at home in the Marriott Center against Central Arkansas on election night. We will not be broadcasting that game because of the election.
It will be on 97.5 FM, our sibling station, the KSL Sports Zone.
Who do you expect to start in that first game? And for context's sake, we've got two samples of what it could be. The blue and white game, Kevin Young coached the second half. That group was, if I'm not mistaken, Richie Saunders, Cannon Catchings, Yegor Demon. Was Dallin Hall a part of that?
Yes.
I think he was, and Keba Keita. And then against Colorado Christian, Dallin Hall was sick, so he did not participate in that game. It was Yegor Demon, Trevin Nell, Richie Saunders, Cannon Catchings, Keba Keita. What do you anticipate Tuesday night?
Part of me was,
and I looked at your
wanting to say that lineup from
that's what you put on our
Wednesday's exhibition, but Dallin Hall, Demon, Saunders, Catchings, Keita. That's the best five, and that group that played in that scrimmage with Kevin Young coaching them, that feels like the five. With Trevin Nell as a perfect six-man.
He did get asked that, and he said no.
Yeah, he said don't take any stock into that, but think that's your best five. I mean, I think that's the starting five, and it's an interesting group because you've got two freshmen, and you've got again. It's what I love about this team this year is just the blend of you've got a guy that knows college basketball in Kay Bakeda. He's a veteran in the college basketball world. Demon, Catchings, high-level NBA draft prospects. And then you've got two BYU guys who had options to leave. They run it back to be part of Kevin Young's program in Dallin Hall and Richie Saunders. So that's my five. What about for you?
I think that's my five. I'm just a little concerned about the scoring with that five.
Really?
Just a little bit, because none of those five, let me back up. Richie Saunders so far is proven to be a much improved offensive player.
See, I'm feeling optimistic about him.
Yes.
I feel
and maybe
really
he fills
good
the
about
3-and-D role. I just wonder, Demon has clearly proven to be a generational playmaker. Even though they haven't played a real game, it's obvious to tell that his ability to pass and make decisions is at an NBA level. That's why he's an NBA guy.
Kevin Young compared his passing to LeBron James. He didn't say he's going to be the next LeBron. He said his passing ability is LeBron James-like.
It's elite. And in both the blue and white game and the exhibition game, there was alley-oop passes on the first play from Demon, one to Keita, one to Catchings. He had several cross-court laser passes that hit shooters right where they needed to be, and they buried three-pointers. Richie Saunders hit a couple. Trevin Knell hit a couple. I just wonder, can Hall and Demon, how much can they coexist, I guess is what I'm saying.
And that's what kind of raised my thought, maybe could Dallin Hall come off the bench? You know, like what we saw, he didn't play obviously in that exhibition, but could there be a world where he's come off the bench? It's hard to think that right now because he's been viewed as a leader of the program. Him and Richie Saunders are the leaders of the program.
Trevin Knell.
And Knell, thank you. But Kevin Young's made that clear. So, but yeah, Demon, what's interesting with him, though, is his three-point shooting is more of a work in progress than maybe I thought to this point. Again, it's two sample sizes, but
he hasn't even tried to score really.
That's what I feel like he's just trying to show how much of a facilitator he is. He's got that aggressive kind of personality where if he needs to take over, he will. So I'm willing to just wait it out. But I think it's something to monitor to see how his three-point shooting improves.
I would have said before getting a good look at these that Catchings would have been the guy off the bench, but his scoring is elite.
Yeah.
And you heard from Coach Voigt earlier today, scoring's not the problem. It's going to be defense, and that's something to monitor at the end of games. And we probably won't know for a couple weeks because they should blow out their first couple opponents. But maybe when we get to Thanksgiving and later, can Catchings close, or is he maybe the odd man out because the defense will have to see. He's got the athletic build to play defense. It's can he execute in that regard? So he's going to start offensively. He's too good to start. How do you – and I guess the problem is this, Mitch. Trevin Knell is such a perfect complement to a playmaker. He knows where to be. He's a quick trigger. He never dribbles the ball. In a lot of respects, he's kind of like a Klay Thompson, not as good defensively and probably not as good offensively, but in that mold where very few dribbles, it's just catch and shoot, and that's a perfect complement to a Demon or a Hall. But I don't know. What do you do? It's and again to point out Coach Voigt's interview, he was happy that's a Kevin Young problem and not something he has to decide because it is a problem. It's a good problem. It's a great problem to have. But how do you fit in the scoring around the play? Because if you have too much playmaking and not enough scoring, kind of defeats the point of the playmaking.
Yeah, BYU's rotation is going to be fascinating because there's just so many talented guys. It's a really good problem to have. How they built this roster is impressive. I mean, a guy like Fousseyni Traore, who was held out with precautionary reasons last week in the exhibition, he just hasn't been a storyline. He was an all Big 12 honorable mention player last year. And no one talks about him, but man, Foose is a stud when he plays, and he reminded you of that in the scrimmage where he had I think 11 boards in that scrimmage. BYU's just got so many talented players, and I think these practices are going to be epic. How they compete against each other because they've naturally probably gotten better just competing against one another because this is a really good team going against each other. I mean, the first and second team units, look at that second team unit and say that's as good as some BYU teams of the past. So it's going to be fascinating to see how this rotation comes together.
Let's take a break. Some bold predictions for the season coming up next as we continue our BYU basketball season preview.
It's Cougar Sports Saturday.
It's complete. Another touchdown!
Cougar Sports Saturday. A presentation of KSL Sports.
Left wing for three. He got it again!
BYU Sports Talk by Cougar fans for Cougar fans. Here are your hosts, Mitch Harper and Matt Baiamonte. On Utah's legacy home of the Cougars. KSL News Radio, 102.7 FM and 1160 AM.
Welcome back into Cougar Sports Saturday. Mitch Harper, Matt Baiamonte with you at Broadcast House here in Salt Lake City. Coming up on Monday night, we'll have Cougar Nation for you, 6 to 7. Talking BYU football. We'll be taking your phone calls. So get ready for that, 801-575-8255. We always talk Cougar football on Mondays in the fall, but then Mondays in the wintertime, we talk BYU basketball on Cougar Nation. And we're talking BYU basketball right now here on Cougar Sports Saturday as we get you ready for our season preview. And it's a perfect time for some bold projections, Matt. Usually the projections can look terrible if it's BYU football or maybe even last year with BYU basketball. People were down and out about some of these BYU teams recently. This BYU team, though, they're still kind of down and out about them. They feel like they're ninth in the Big 12. What's the bold projection you've got for Kevin Young's squad in year one?
I think that this BYU basketball team will be in the Elite Eight. How's that for bold?
How about that? First time since 81.
Elite Eight. I think that
You're going there, Elite Eight?
this is nearly a perfect roster. They're only missing one thing. And I don't even know if they're really missing it because I think there's guys who will fill that void nicely. They're really missing like a 7-foot rim protector. But look, I'm just going to get both my predictions out because they're related. I think BYU is going to lead the conference in blocks. So even though they don't have a 7-footer, Foose can defend the rim. Keba Keita had the block of our lifetimes in that exhibition game. He blocked a ball over the head of Danny Ainge. So it went out of the arena and into the blue seats.
Into the stands.
Keita is an elite rim runner and defender of the rim, as is Foose. I think Foose is above average at that. You look at him and he's small, but he's got an insanely long reach. I think he's a good rim defender. And then you also have Catchings and Demon, who are very lengthy, and Richie Saunders. I think this team is nearly perfect, man. They have great three-point shooting. They were 50% from three in the exhibition win, 16 of 32. They had, how many assists did they have? They had 24 assists on 31 attempts. So they are a great three-point shooting team. The amount of playmaking on this team compared to last year's team, it's unbelievable. It's like, that would be like me in college driving a 1970 Opel Kadett, for those of you who know that it is, and now I'm driving a Tesla Model 3. It's a big upgrade in the playmaking department, Mitch. Big upgrade. Dawson Baker, Demon, Hall, Elijah Crawford can playmate. Did I say Dawson Baker? I think I already said Dawson Baker, but even Saunders a little bit is showing an improvement in that area. Playmaking, better. Three-point shooting, as good as last year. Defending the rim, good. Length defensively, great. Depth, better than it's ever been. And on top of that, something you have to have in college basketball, you have to have experience. Nell, Hall, Saunders, Foose, Baker, they've got a lot of experience, but they've got high-end talent. That's why I think they're going to the Elite Eight. It's going to be a magical season. Man. Did I not convince you there?
I want to believe. I want to believe.
What's holding you back?
The seating. I know how this song and dance works. We saw it last March. 5 seed, but they dropped to a 6. Like, I think BYU, I feel confident.
But that team was so flawed last year.
I agree. And this is a much better team. much better everything in BYU basketball right now. I will say, though, BYU, my bold projection is they win a round of 64 NCAA tournament game.
That's not bold at all.
How is that not bold? They haven't won a round of 64 game since Jimmer. Since Jimmer. That's 14 years ago.
Not bold enough.
14 years ago? You haven't experienced something and that's not bold?
Come on. This team's sights are too high for one win.
They're pricked.
Don't deny you'd be disappointed with one win.
I would not. Any NCAA tournament win, that's epic stuff.
One win.
Absolutely. I would take that
That's
in a
not
heartbeat.
That's not epic at all. No one thinks about that 2009 season as being epic. They won one game.
I look at that in high regard. They beat Florida. That was awesome. Jimmer waved to the camera. It was sweet.
It was a nice BYU basketball season, but let's not act like it was Jimmer's senior year or 1984.
I get a little bit worried because freshman-led teams,
They're not led by a freshman, though.
the best players, though, are freshmen on this team.
We don't know that.
You don't believe that, though?
Richie
Catchings and
Saunders
Demon?
apparently led the team in scoring in the secret scrimmage
That's fair.
that the coaching staff keeps talking about.
And look, Saunders looks awesome. Fans that haven't got the chance to see this team yet and be in the Marriott Center, Saunders looks
And can we tip the cap to the staff for putting him at shooting guard where he belongs?
Yeah, he looks great right now. He is a new and improved guy on the offensive end. And I know it's an inter-squad scrimmage and a D2 team, but you can just see that this is going to carry over. He's going to have a big-time year for this BYU team. But the best players at the end of the day are Demon and Catchings. And that's when your best players, not necessarily the leaders, but the best players are freshmen.
I'm not ready to say they are the best players.
Are you kidding me?
Just because they have the highest ceiling and best NBA potential.
Look at Catchings and Demon. Those builds, man. Like that is. Those
You're talking about physique. You're talking about recruiting stars. Let's talk about experience in production.
Demon is passing the rock like LeBron. Come on. This is epic stuff.
You know what I love about Demon too? This is a deep cut, but I think it speaks volumes to how he's going to fit into this program and this fan base and this team. He dishes it to Saunders. Saunders nails a three. He runs down the floor, 3 fingers out, celebrating a teammate's make.
Yeah.
And he did that multiple times. High fives after other players made plays. Doesn't feel like this dude. He's very clearly one and done. I think it's best for the program if he goes to the NBA after this year. But he's very clearly enjoying his time and wants to win. It doesn't feel like a one-and-done guy, even though that's probably what he's going to be.
I mean, he's dressing up in Dumb and Dumber at Halloween. He's enjoying life in America. It's pretty cool.
Yes.
He's dressed up as an Eggo waffle on Halloween night. He's enjoying life, and I think that's awesome that he's enjoying the BYU experience. Again, I'm going back to my bold prediction, though. Round of 64 win, at least one. At least one. That's bold to me in the world of BYU basketball. How about this for bold? Top 10 3-point percentage team this season. And by comparison, last year, so BYU volume was near the top in college basketball.
Percentage was not, though.
Percentage was 34.8%. That was 136 nationally. Top 10 teams in three-point shooting last year in college basketball. The 10th ranked team in three-point percentage was 38.4%. I think BYU can get there.
Especially when you see what Nell did against CCU. It's like he never had a defender on him.
Yeah.
And how could you? Because you have to protect the rim, and then you're worried about Catchings and Demon, and then off in the corner is Nell. You got to give up something.
Kind of interesting last year. The number one three-point shooting team last year in college basketball by percentage, Kentucky, 40.9.
They had Reed Shepherd.
Yes. And then Purdue, 40.4, who played in the national title game. So
it's a good correlation there. Great three-point shooting teams can do damage in the NCAA tournament. That didn't seem to translate a couple years ago, though, did it?
Kentucky, well, that's what's crazy. They lost to Oakland, and they not the team from some team from California. It was the guy that never dribbled, and he just shot threes all the time. They lost to that team. So it doesn't always equal, but I think it definitely puts you in the conversation to to win at a high level in this sport if you can shoot the three. And just the way that BYU's offense ran on that exhibition, the way they got their three-point looks, it was like an NBA team. These kickouts, I mean, the way they passed, the motions, the sets, it was very NBA-like. I would recommend to Cougar fans, you want to get a glimpse of how BYU operates, watch the NBA more because there's so much crossover. It's kind of crazy. The things that is working in the NBA, Kevin Young's incorporating it into this program. It's truly going to be a place that they prepare guys for the NBA.
Can I ask you this, since we have the same starting lineup? What do you think the next four are going to be? Because I would anticipate this settles into a 9-man rotation. Who do you think are guys 6, 7, 8, and 9?
Trevor Nell. Foose. Dawson Baker.
And this is where it gets interesting. Elijah Crawford, maybe?
I think it's got to be Elijah Crawford because what we saw in that exhibition, he made an impact. He was a stat stuffer too. I mean, beyond just his scoring, maybe the passing, he was a capable rebounder too. I wasn't expecting that from him. He really got after it on the glass. I'd probably go Crawford. Would be my thought.
The only other debate would be if and when we figure out what's going on with Mihailo Boskovich.
Oh yeah,
where does he fit in?
Yeah, if his eligibility can clear up, and he's going to be a junior this season, but if he can get cleared, there's no new update according to Kevin Young as of Wednesday. If he can get cleared, that's a big-time impact player. I mean, this guy was going through NBA draft workouts this past summer, and people added him. I mean, that is a massive get, and he looked good in that scrimmage too. And even in this few minutes in the exhibition game against Colorado Christian, he knocked down a three. I think he had a stretch where if memory serves me right, he had about 5 points, 7 points in a row.
He nailed 2 threes late in that game.
So Boskovich would be a real difference maker, and he'd be a type of guy that you could say could be starter good potentially, but his eligibility for this season remains in doubt, so you can't really say right now that he'd be in that rotation.
All right, let's take a break. By the way, Iowa State is losing. Rocco Beck just threw a pick in the second quarter, so Texas Tech is in business. Taking the break, more hoops on the other side.